Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. Once again, welcome to this channel. Well, in today's short lecture, I will try to cover maximum ideas about nature, function, and formative elements of tragedy as Aristotle has depicted in his famous work Poetics. Stay till the end and you will be able to answer 10 to 20 marks long question very easily. So, let's start. Have you ever wondered what is the origin of word tragedy? Well, tragedy comes from Greek word tragedia, which means goat song. It is a combination of two words, tragus, which means goat, and oide means song. Why is it so that tragedy is linked with goat song? There are many theories about it, but no one is certain what is the reason behind it. But one theory states that initially actors, those who performed on the stage, they used to wear masks in order to cover their identity, and they used to wear goat skin. So we can link the term tragedy with this practice. Another theory states that as tragedy was performed on the festivals that were conducted in order to celebrate and honor the god Dionysus, which is the god of wine and theater. Many goats were sacrificed, and sacrificial songs and hymns were also sung. So, these sacrificial goat hymns gave birth to the practice and origin of tragedy. So let's move to the Aristotle's concept of tragedy. Aristotle's Poetics is foundational text, and it is also known as Bible of criticism because later on it shaped and modified the whole course of criticism. Then moving to the tragedy, no discussion of tragedy is complete without mentioning Aristotle's ideas about tragedy. His views not only provide insight about the ancient Greek theater. Rather, they inform us about the future developments of tragedy. As future dramatists, particularly we see in the Renaissance and the New Classical Age, that they were largely guided by Aristotle's definition of tragedy. So, without any delay, let's dive into the world of Aristotle's poetics. Aristotle considered tragedy the highest poetic form. He describes and compares the various genres that were present in his time period, and among them, he ranks tragedy as the topmost. Time and again, we are saying that all art is imitation of reality. So, according to Aristotle, poetry differs from music in its medium. Epic poetry and dramatic poetry differ in the manner of representation. He compares Homer and Sophocles here. He says that Homer, who was an epic poet, a blind poet who was writing in 9th and 10th century BCE perhaps, he wrote Iliad and Odyssey, and the epic is a long narrative poem that recounts the adventures of a legendary hero. And Sophocles, who was writing drama, particularly tragedy also deals with the serious action. So in this regard, Homer and Sophocles, they share some kind of affinity. They are similar because they both are dealing with serious action. The characters involved in their works, they belong to the higher class, they are member of aristocracy, and the action depicted is quite serious and grave. In this regard, they are similar, but their manner of representation makes them quite different, makes them stand apart from each other. One is writing for the stage, his manner of representation is dramatic, other is using narration. Similarly, Sophocles and Aristophanes have also been compared by the Aristotle. Both are writing for the stage. Sophocles is writing tragic drama, whereas Aristophanes is writing comic drama. So their manner of representation is same. They are writing in drama form, but their object of imitation is quite uh, distinct and different from each other. Sophocles is depicting serious action. There, the characters depicted in drama are of higher kind, whereas Aristophanes is depicted character from the lower strata of society who possess lower intellectual capabilities and who are lower than the average humanity. So in this regard, they are quite different from each other. So tragedy imitates man as better than they are in reality, whereas comedy imitates man as worse than average. If we trace the origin and the development of poetry, we come to know that poetry was of two kinds in ancient time period. First is ion. Ions are invectives were used to criticize poems that were used to criticize the brutality of the society, the people who were involved in the corruption. They were satirized and criticized through these poems. And the other type is hymns. Hymns or panegyrics were written in order to eulogize, in order to praise or celebrate some famous personalities. So we see that in these two types of poetry, uh, they gave birth to the different kind of poetry later on. Tragedy developed from hymns and panegyrics. So let's move to the definition of tragedy as expounded by Aristotle in Poetics. According to Aristotle, tragedy is an imitation of action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude, in language embellished with each kind of artistic ornament, the several kinds being found in separate parts of the play. In the form of action, not of narrative, through pity and fear affecting the proper purgation of these emotions. Well, this definition might appear very small to you, but it can be expanded to many pages or even books. So let's see what is in it if we decode it. So the first and the foremost principle of a tragedy according to Aristotle is mimesis, imitation. Tragedy is an imitation of action. The tragedy is first and foremost the representation of human action on the stage. It is not slavish copying, it does not involve mimicking or act of mirroring. Rather, it goes beyond it. It is a creative representation of human action. So, tragedy involves imitation. The second thing is tragedy is imitation of serious action. So, it involves seriousness. The actions represented have serious, often dire consequences, and the characters represented are of elevated social status. The second point, the second principle that Aristotle lays forward is the action must be serious in nature. If you're, let's suppose, if you're going for a cycling and you fall from the cycle, this incident will not serve to be devised into plot of a tragedy. So tragedy involves some kind of a serious, some kind of a grave, and some incidents that would have tragic outcome for the characters involved in it. So, third principle is the action must be complete. The plot is complete, coherent, whole, lasting long enough to represent adequately the reversal of hero's fortune. So action must be complete. It should not having some kind of loopholes. It would not leave you with unanswered questions. It would be coherent. You could easily and logically follow that what is happening in the drama. So let's see what does complete mean. So, action of a tragedy is complete if it has a beginning, proper middle, and an end. Beginning means action which does not follow necessarily from something else, but after which a further event or action naturally occurs. So, it is self contained, it is self dependent, it is the foundation, it gives birth to the later events, but it is not the result of any previous events. So it is not linked with any prior action, but it gives birth to the many incidents that later come on. In case of Oedipus Rex, we see that when Oedipus is approached by people of Thebes to rescue them from plague and famine, that they are being ravaged by the plague and they are facing very difficult situations. So they approach Oedipus that he is the king of kings and he might deliver them, he might rescue them from this dire situation. So this is a proper beginning according to the Aristotle, because it is not raising any kind of unnecessary questions in our minds. Then and the middle which follows something else and is followed by another thing. In case of Oedipus Rex, Oedipus' discovery of truth about his biological parents, it is a proper middle. It is the most tense situation. It can be linked with the climax and all the events that happen between beginning and end can be termed as middle. Then is the end, which itself naturally follows from something else but has nothing following it. For example, Oedipus' exile and Jocasta's suicide, it is a proper and sufficient end. It does not leave any unanswered question. all the riddles and all the dilemmas and the problems are solved at the end of the situation. Oedipus comes to know about his true parenthood, and resultantly he exiles himself, he becomes a beggar, and Jocasta, after knowing the truth that Oedipus is her real son, commits suicide. So this is a very well structured ending, and that's why Aristotle times and again quotes Sophocles' Oedipus Rex as a well structured plot. Well, on your screen you can see the Poetics pyramid. It consists of 5 elements: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. But many years back, many centuries back, Aristotle provides us with 3 elements of plot, and Aristotle says that plot, well structured plot, must have a beginning, it must have a proper middle, and also be a well structured end. Now we are moving to the magnitude, that is the fourth important principle of a tragedy according to Aristotle. Magnitude means the size of a tragedy. So, according to Aristotle, action should neither be too small nor too long. Action should be long enough to convincingly portray the reversal of fortune of the protagonist, long enough to be retained in memory. So, Aristotle is of the view that magnitude should be of certain length. Certain length, he doesn't give hard and fast rule that a tragedy should be of 100 pages or 50 pages or 1000 words or 50,000 words. Rather, he says that dramatists should be relying on their common sense. It should not be neither too small or not too long. It should be retained by the memory of the audience. So here he also gives us an analogy of an animal. If an animal is, if a living being is too small, you would not be able to appreciate its distinct part individually and separately. And if an animal is too long and too larger, let's suppose it is of 1,000 miles, you might be able to appreciate its starting point or the middle point or the ending point, but you would not be able to analyze and appreciate it, the animal on the whole. So for a tragedy to be effective, for a tragedy to be of appeal, it must be retained. And so now we are moving to the language. According to Aristotle, language of tragedy must be embellished, and these embellishments are present in different parts of the tragedy. Language is not ordinary. It uses heightened kind of speech. It can be mixture of different poetic meters. Songs include in the chorus part, and the songs are included. Then these songs are composed in distinct meters, whereas dialogues are present in the form of another kind of verse. So language is embellished. It might be having different metaphors and similes as well in order to have appealing impact upon the audience. So, according to Aristotle, as far as mode of imitation is concerned, he very clearly mentions that tragedy is dramatic in nature. It is opposed to narrative. Narration is suited for epic poetry, whereas tragedy is a dramatic poetry. Stories are acted out on the stage by the actors through dialogue and various actions. So now we are moving to the function of tragedy. Function of tragedy is catharsis. Tragedy arouses pity and fear in the viewer and brings about catharsis. Aristotle described catharsis as purging of emotions of pity and fear that are aroused in the viewer of a tragedy. Catharsis is a positive social function of tragedy. If you remember, Plato condemns poetry on the basis that it appeals to the emotional sides of human being. It gives rise to the emotions and sentiments and feelings, and man may become very emotional and sentimental. He might not be able to retain a positive balance of emotions that is needed to be a functional part of society. But Aristotle says that catharsis is a very important function of a tragedy. Catharsis is the purgation of excessive emotions, of pity and fear in the audience. If these emotions don't find a legitimate outlet, they can be very dangerous for us. If we suppress emotions of pity and fear, if we repress them, later on it can be very problematic for us. So we see that Aristotle is very realistic in nature, because in this scenario, in the present age, we have acknowledged this fact that doing away with emotions is not something that we should be trying. It is very dangerous for the emotional health of human beings. This is the feeling of pity and fear in the audience. So pity and fear are two opposing emotions. When we take pity, we move forward. It is an impulse that pushes us to feel one with the characters or the agents or the actions. But when we are afraid, we take a step back, we want to flee from the scene. So pity and fear are simultaneously produced when we witness a tragedy or when we go through a tragedy. Pity, like take the example of Oedipus Rex, we feel pity on the tragic doom of Oedipus, who was intellectually superior to us, Oedipus, who delivered his messes from the clutches of Sphinx, Oedipus, who did many splendid things for his public, for the people of Thebes, but he met the tragic doom that he didn't deserve. So this kind of scenario, this kind of situation arouses the feeling of pity in us. And we are simultaneously afraid that if such a splendid person, such a splendid character and personality can face such kind of situation, and how insignificant human beings are, how insignificant our presence is in this world. We are fated for certain things. However, we might forcefully we try to evade this fate, but we cannot do so, as is apparent in the case of Oedipus Rex. So such kind of feelings make us very much afraid, and if we witness the tragedy, we feel one with the characters and we become more knowledgeable at the end of going through this kind of tragic works or witnessing tragedy being performed on the stage. So moral and psychological impact of a tragedy cannot be neglected. So catharsis restores a positive balance of emotions inside us. So function of tragedy is very important. Now we are moving to the formative elements of tragedy. Aristotle presents 6 components of tragedy in order of importance, and the first and the foremost and the most important elements of tragedy is plot. Then comes character, thought and diction, then spectacle and song. Each part contributes to the overall effect of the tragedy. So let's move to the plot. Plot is the logical arrangement of events within a dramatic performance, emphasizing that tragedy is first and foremost the representation of action and not of character. Aristotle makes the remark that many contemporary tragedies do not succeed in their characterization but are still tragedy. If dramatists focus on the characters and the speeches given to the characters and the thought and the spectacles are given importance, they might fail. But if they prefer plot, if the plot of the tragedy is well structured, because tragedy is an action, so if plot is given the preference, plot is well structured, then tragedy can be successful. It is through plot that the dramatist should aim to arouse the feelings of pity and fear in the audience. He should not be relying upon the characterization, more on characterization or speech or the spectacle. Rather, he should be focusing on plot. The tragic effect comes from the plot and especially from the peripety, the reversal of situation in which the characters find themselves, as well as from the scenes of recognition. So when he is focusing on the plot, he should also include the elements of peripety and anagnorisis. Peripety is the reversal of fortune. That is quite apparent in the case of Oedipus Rex. At the start of the play, he is a king. He is the one who distributes rewards and punishments. At the end of the play, he is not king, he becomes a beggar, and he is on the receiving end of the punishment, because he comes to know, and the audience comes to know, that he is the one who really committed the murder of King Lice. So there is a reversal of fortune. And then is anagnorisis, an important element of plot. Anagnorisis is the recognition of truth, and these both elements might be linked with anagnorisis or the recognition in case of Oedipus Rex, when he comes to know that his real parents are Jocasta and Laius. So this recognition, this knowing of the truth, leads to the peripety, reversal of the fortune. So plot is very important. Dramatists should be focusing on the plot, and plot should have the elements of peripety and anagnorisis. Next come the characters. Characters are the agents involved in the action, but characters can also be described as the certain qualities of moral being or emotional being or intellectual being. The qualities that we ascribe to the characters or the agents are also termed as character. Character is the second in importance of the plot. Tragedies depict characters as they relate to the action, which is the main object of representation. Characters represent their moral qualities through speeches assigned to them by the dramatist. So characters are agents, and the characters also depict themselves through their speeches, and characters may be defined as the moral disposition and the qualities that are ascribed to the agents. So thought is also an important element of a tragedy. Thought comprises both the rational processes through which characters come to decisions as represented in the drama, as well as values put forward in the form of maxims and proverbs. Aristotle says that thought is the capacity of the characters to say whatever is needed or required according to the demand of the situation, demand of the occasion. So thought is depicted whatever characters say or how they elaborate their point. So thought is an intellectual element in their speech. The next and the element is diction. Diction has already been defined as the metrical composition of the play, the way language is used to convey the representation. Whereas thought is the intellectual element, that thought is presented in the form of diction. Diction is the practical choice of language, the choice of words and how they have been arranged, the choice of meter. So all these things are analyzed under the category of diction. The next element is song. Song or the music is described as an embellishment of language. Lines assigned to the chorus come under the category of a song in the tragedy, and they are usually accompanied by the rhythmical movement. We also know that chorus performs the songs. Choral odes are given to the chorus, and these choral odes are performed with dancing movement. Chorus comes to the stage and he is involved in they are involved in certain kind of dancing movements while they perform the songs. So spectacle is the last and the least important element of the tragedy. Aristotle lists spectacle last in order of importance, pointing out that the power of tragedy is not fully dependent upon its performers. We can read a tragedy and still appreciate its message where spectacle is not present, and that the art of the spectacle really belongs to the set designer and not to the poet. Spectacle involves scenic representation. It also involves the visual effect, the background scenery, the costumes, the makeup, the mask, the props. All these things fall under the category of spectacle. It deals with the visual appeal and the visual effects. So according to Aristotle, a dramatist should not be relying upon spectacle. Spectacle is the least important because it has no role in arising the emotion. It should not be having any role in arising the feelings of pity and fear among the audience. If you go through a dramatic work where the role of spectacle is next to nothing, you also feel and experience the emotions of pity and fear. So in this way, Aristotle is of the view that a dramatist should be focusing on plot. Plot is the key and the tool that can lead to the effective emotional release, but spectacle should not be relied upon for the cathartic effect. So here is the organization of formative elements, and we see that different arts are differentiated in three ways: on the object of imitation, medium of imitation, and manner of imitation. So in this way, object of imitation falls under the object of imitation deals with plot, character, and thought, whereas medium is involved with diction and song as well. Here the word song I have missed. So medium involves song and diction, whereas manner of spectacle deals with spectacle. So let's conclude our discussion here. Aristotle's theory of tragedy is very influential. It has shaped the later dramatists and their art. His concepts such as catharsis, hamartia, continue to shape our understanding of tragedy even today. And you must know that tragic hero, hamartia, and catharsis I have not discussed in detail because we are discussing the tragedy on the whole. So these ideas and these topics will be discovered in the upcoming lectures. Thank you for watching and staying till the end. Thank you.